All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking time to leave us ratings and reviews wherever you listen to or watch this podcast. It really does help it, and we appreciate every single one that we get. We've got a Q&A episode for you today, and we have a sponsor today. We're sponsored by Dell Seton Emergency Hospital in Austin, Texas, a part of the University of Texas. The reason I bring it up is because I said on Instagram that we would tell the story of what happened this weekend to us, to me. So let's get into it. You were involved. Okay, so I'll try not to go into too much detail and make this too excruciating, but long story short, I was disconnecting our camper from our truck. Let me also say the reason that the camper was connected to the truck in the first place. As goes this time of year in Texas, when it's 1,000,000 degrees and we haven't had a drop of rain in what seems like a year, it's extremely dry and it's been extremely windy too. There's what they call a red flag warning, meaning like the conditions are ripe for wildfires. And that's exactly what happened, exactly like it did last year around this exact same time. A wildfire broke out about 3 miles from our house, started out at about 70 acres, and within 3 hours, it had grown to almost 400 acres, and the wind direction was headed towards us. So, we tried to be cautious. There was really no reason to stay in the house because at this point, the fire was probably closer to 2 miles away from us.
And they had evacuated the neighborhood on the opposite side of the street from us. So it was kind of like we were next in line if they were going to evacuate our neighborhood. So it was like, why not be 100% ready or just go. Where we live, it kind of is not like there's not just like it's not a neighborhood. It's like kind of in the country. So there's just like one street in and out of a lot of places. And I think that's what gets scary about these neighborhoods is like there's one way in and one way out.
So we looked around the house. What are the valuable things, sentimental things that can't be replaced? We put like 2 boxes worth of stuff in our truck, hooked up the camper, and went to a local RV park that's close to town. And by the time we got there and started getting set up, we checked the update on the fire, and it had actually stopped advancing. The wind had died down, and the fire crews and the airplanes
but this one was like 9:30
water.
at night. But somehow they had stopped the air crews, but they had like flattened it out and stopped it from spreading. They hadn't put it out yet, but it was just like not able to spread. And we realized that the air conditioner in our camper was not working.
Yeah.
So it was just like suffocating in there. We were sitting in the car with the dogs, and we were just like, okay, now what do we do? So
that's why the camper.
We turned around, came back home, parked it at like 10 o'clock at night. Did not unhook it that night. Just was like, okay, we're here. Let's just go back home.
So I went out early in the morning to disconnect the camper from the truck. And if anybody listening to this ever tows something heavy, you'll know that sometimes you have this thing called a weight distribution hitch on your trailer, which helps you be able to haul heavier loads without it swaying around and keep your bumper from sagging. And this is a new experience for us, and I was disconnecting it. And there's part of this mechanism that's under an extreme amount of tension. And I had a tire iron essentially hooked up to it because that's what you're supposed to do. And as I pulled out the release pin on this part that was under tension, it did release, and I wasn't expecting it. And the tire iron swung from underneath me, clocked me on the underside of the left side of my jaw, and darn near knocked me out, I guess. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember stumbling over to the little cabinet that we have in our RV storage area and spitting out a lot of blood and pieces of teeth. And I didn't know at that time that I had a cut under my chin, but I staggered into the house. This was like before 7 o'clock in the morning. Staggered into the house, called out for Blakely, laid on the couch. She saw the cut, helped me get the bleeding stopped with a rag, called our neighbor next door who was nice enough to come over in his pajamas. So then we determined that, like, actually looking back, like, I don't know why we made this decision, but we decided to go to an urgent care.
I was more concerned about this giant gash that was like open on his neck.
Right.
And I was like, you need some stitches ASAP. And
and I've made it to 45 years old with never having a broken bone or ever having stitches in my life, which is pretty impressive. But we went to an urgent care, waited like 30 minutes. These things are glorified like doctor's offices. If you have a real emergency, I would just go to the emergency room. But anyway, they slapped a Band-Aid on the cut. and told me to go to the emergency room.
He was like,
essentially.
your teeth are, I was like really concerned about the thing on his neck. They were like, your mouth is in a worse shape than your neck. Let's put a Band-Aid on your neck and go to the emergency room. But you have to find an emergency room with an on-call dentist, and it's a Sunday, dentist and
they call them OMFS, oromaxillary facial surgeon, something like that.
So like and that's really hard to find. So there is one in Austin. So we make our way up there.
Luckily,
to the hospital.
Our neighbor on the other side of Benson and Christina is a urologist who has a lot of connections in the Austin area
with this hospital system. So she
actually got on the phone with the surgeon and the dentist before we even got there, and kind of gave them a heads up, because they're not like sitting in the hospital, they're on call in other parts of the city. So they both made it there pretty quickly.
And the urgent care guy had called ahead and basically like admitted Jonathan to the hospital somehow. And so when we got there, it was this hospital. My aunt also works for the hospital system, and she was just like, okay, you have to go to this one, but it's horrible. You're going to be there all day. And we just got so lucky. He admitted Jonathan.
It wasn't luck. God was good.
Line, and he was just like, we got in. By the time I got the car parked, he was already in, admitted and stuff like that. So yeah.
So they, assessed the damage. The jaw surgeon type guy, I can't remember exactly what they call him, but said that, yes, you do have a dental situation that needs to be dealt with really soon, but they did a CT scan of my face and saw that my jaw was miraculously not broken, which they said is extremely rare when you have this much trauma inside your mouth, because that would have required wiring my jaw shut and all kinds of fun things like that
Crazy.
Nobody wants to go through. So anyway, they stitched up my neck at that time, offered me, prescription pain meds. Well, I tell you what, the most painful part of the entire situation was the cleaning of the wound on the neck. You probably didn't even notice because I was really trying to act tough, but they just washed it out with soap and water, and it felt like it was
don't talk about it. Don't talk about it.
If you're faint, turn this off. But got discharged from the hospital. Came home. What did we do the rest of that day? They didn't give you any
pain medicine. You just took Advil.
Yeah, I didn't take anything, but they said you could also just take Advil when you get home. Actually, that same day that we got home, we still had. Let me back up. The truck was still connected to the trailer, so we actually halfway.
Well, and the whole thing, the reason this happened is we were leaving in a hurry to evacuate the night before, and he it's our first time really connecting this sway bar thing that we have now, and he connected it incorrectly.
Correct.
So it was extremely tight. He had to use so much force to get it connected that it shouldn't have been that tight. It should just be like a coop, you can move it quick. It's a lot of force, but you can move it easily.
It was user error.
And then pull a pin and withstand the pressure and hold it back. It shouldn't have been that much pressure built up on these chains.
Yeah. So we took our neighbor's car to the ER.
Yeah. So yes, we only have one car now, and so we're we only need one car. We work from home, and now we have a car that's half connected to a trailer, and we need to go to the emergency room.
But we have neighbors that also work from home that have two cars. So between the four of us, we have three cars.
So. He was actually Monday. He had a lot of dental work coming up, and he was feeling surprisingly okay by Sunday evening. And he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try to
let's finish the job.
I'm gonna disconnect the trailer." And oh my gosh, I was so scared. We actually almost had a second incident because the other side was also
it was also under just as much tension.
Connected incorrectly, and we had to get this pressure off. So we connected two dog leashes. In hindsight, it shouldn't have been dog leashes with a metal clip on it.
Just a string would have been good.
Just a string. But I stood back as far as I could with two dog leashes to pull this pin while he was going to withstand the pressure. And sure enough, it popped like crazy, and the dog leash goes flying and almost hits Jonathan in the face.
But we did not have the wrench connected like we did on the other side. Anyway, since then we've had to connect and disconnect the trailer at least twice successfully, so we feel confident moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, picking up with the story, I'll cut this short. The very next day.
Let me tell the second part of the story of that though. So he gets it disconnected, and he's fresh from the hospital, stitches, gonna have major dental work the next day, and he's like, let me try to reconnect it and make sure I know how to do it. I was like, I swear if you reconnect that trailer.
Did I? I don't remember. Did we do it again?
You sort of played with it, and I was like, that's it. We're done if you reconnect that trailer to this
I got
truck.
a hard jaw and a hard head. Put it that way.
Oh,
Okay,
goodness.
so picking up quickly, my sister was all over it on the Google machine trying to find an emergency dentist. Come to
Yeah,
find
that's the hard
out,
thing on a Sunday.
yeah, it was a Sunday. But we did make contact with a really nice dentist, talked us through the entire thing on Sunday, and was able to make an appointment for Monday morning. So went in
Yeah.
this past Monday morning. I had 3 teeth extracted, 2 of which were wisdom teeth. Who gets their wisdom teeth out at 45
You're
years old?
lucky.
One upper molar, got a temporary crown on one other tooth. There's another one that needs a temporary crown, and I have a ton of fillings from my teeth being all chipped up.
That are to come. You don't have the fillings yet. They're gonna.
Right, that's
Just
going to
don't
happen
smile.
later. Yeah. And I'm going to have an implant tooth put in for the molar that was not a wisdom tooth. So we need some clients. So anybody who's been on the fence about joining, please reach out.
I would say the bonus of all this is just like, if you're gonna like go get your wisdom teeth out, you're like, oh gosh, and leading up, you're nervous and you're anticipating. You didn't even know you're gonna get your wisdom teeth out. You just go to the dentist. He's like, BT dubs, we're taking out 2 wisdom teeth. Like
Yeah.
you didn't even have a chance to get nervous about it, and no big deal.
No big deal. I'm not. Everybody keeps saying like I can't imagine how bad that hurt and how much pain you're in now. Honestly, I was probably in shock when it happened, and that kind of mitigated some of the pain of the initial trauma. And honestly, the main pain that I've been in since then is the occasional headache that quickly goes away with a dose of Advil. And my jaw is still sore, like I was in a fight. Like it hurts to open and close my mouth at the extremes, and my bite is all jacked up. Like I feel like I'm chewing with a stranger's mouth right now. Things that used to connect in a certain way don't line up
everything
anymore.
got shifted. Okay.
So there might be some
stop talking about
orthodontics in
this.
the
It gives
future.
me like the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I got lightheaded when the guy was looking in my mouth describing what he was looking like. I was like, you have to stop
They're
and
like,
I got to lay down.
Do you have a concussion? I was like, no, he just gets really lightheaded when we talk about it.
Yeah, man, I'm getting a little sweaty right now. I don't know if it's because the air conditioner's off or I'm reliving the
All
experience.
right. We got some questions and they don't have to do with teeth. So let's do this. All right. This is going to be a question answer. Thank you guys for submitting some questions. It's very helpful. All right. First one. I'm in a funk with my training. What should I do?
Been there.
I think this is common in the summer. I mean, it can be any time, but it is common in the summer to maybe get into a funk. It's hot outside everywhere. Yeah.
And like sometimes you come to the realization that the basics that work and get you the most progress aren't super complicated. So you got to look for ways to spice things up to keep consistent with the basics so you can keep getting results.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance of novel, new things versus the things that you have to keep doing to make progress. So here's some things that I thought of.
Yeah.
Think about setting kind of like a mid-tier short-term goal to chase. Feeling a little bit bored about the routine, like let's pick something to get better at in the short term. Let's try to improve our mile time on top of our training. Let's try to hit a milestone with our bench press or our squat or our reps on a certain kind of thing. Sometimes just having like a little bit of a rabbit to chase will make you a little bit more motivated to get in there. Add something to your training that you love. Keep doing the things that you know you have to do, and then add in something that maybe you feel like you used to do and really like, but for some reason stopped doing. Maybe that is running. Maybe you know the benefits of strength training, or you've just been doing CrossFit or whatever, but you know you really like riding a bike. Throw that into your training, even if you have to pull out an element. Like add something that you look forward to. Find a friend, the buddy system.
Yeah.
Pull your neighbor in to look over your shoulder. I have several clients whose spouses do the training program that I write for my client, just kind of shadowing them because they like to work out together.
Yeah.
This works for roping your kids into it too. A neighbor.
Definitely.
I have clients whose neighbors cheat along and follow the programs. We don't care as long as everybody's working out and getting healthier, but having a friend can be a big difference maker also. Track something, like add a metric to kind of gamify the situation for you. It doesn't have to be like you're shooting for a goal, but you'll be excited to see how you improve in something. It could be a strength metric. It could be a conditioning metric. It could be a consistency metric, something like that. I'm very aware of how my speech pattern has changed with
It's okay.
this change in my teeth. Like it feels weird to like certain words just don't come out right. So
I was going
forgive
to
me.
say that finding a buddy is, I think, one of the best suggestions, because like finding someone that you're going to work out with puts a time on it. You guys both have to think about what days and what time are we going to work out, and that's like set up.
Yep.
And sometimes you might have a hesitation of like, oh, I don't want to like put that in concrete for myself, blah, blah, but that will help if you are truly in a funk and you need that consistency, and they might even need that accountability as well.
Yeah.
You guys meet up 3 or 4 times a week at a certain time and get this done.
I remember like back when you owned the gym, and like I would go to the afternoon classes after work, but myself and our friend Austin would train in the garage at 6 a.m. Like I think we did it 5 days a week. Maybe it was 3. I don't remember what it was, but the fact was
3
like
or 4 days a week. Yeah.
I knew he was showing up, and I knew I needed to roll up that garage door a couple minutes before 6. It wasn't a choice of whether I was going to sleep in or not, because there was some accountability. The buddy system paid off.
Yep.
Made
Definitely.
tons of gains during that time.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say, were you going to say something else?
I'll go after you. Go ahead.
The last thing I was going to say was to think about giving yourself a little micro reward for sticking with the process, even if it's not so enjoyable 100% of the time.
Like what?
Like, is there like a piece of clothing that you've been eyeing up that you want to buy, but you've been kind of on the fence? Not really a necessity, but it's a want. Like, tell yourself if you're consistent for 2 weeks, you'll go ahead and buy that top that you want, or that pair of shoes that you want, that matching set that you want.
So I can get a new top.
I don't know. Let me see your consistency log. But anyway, I wouldn't recommend like turning this into a cheat meal situation.
Right.
But it could be anything. Like you got your eyes on a fancy Stanley mug, but can't justify the cost. Be consistent for a month and then reward yourself with that fancy Stanley.
It takes a month to get anyway. So.
That's right. Those are my main suggestions.
Nice. Yeah, no, I was
Anything
going to
you wanna add to
say
that?
that's kind of the reason that I write programming. Like I write the framework for all of our programming at Digital Barbell in these chunks of time. I go anywhere from 8 to 12 week chunks of time, because I know that, it's good to do the same thing over and over and over to make progress. But I also know that as time goes on, it's like, okay, we've been doing bent over rows now for 8 to 10 weeks. When are we changing this up? And so we just now started, this week is our first week in a new, like losing the word. What is the
cycle?
Cycle. Yeah. Programming cycle. So I love when we start a new programming cycle, because myself, I start to feel like anxious toward the end of them, because I'm like, not that anybody is saying anything. I'm just like, are people getting bored? Are they wondering when we're changing it up? So I love to like introduce the new cycle and tell everybody what it's all about. And I feel like, I think it does at least, gets everybody kind of pumped up for the next 10 to 12 weeks that we're going to progress through.
I'm super excited about this new cycle. I'm like chomping at the bit to get healed and get into it.
Yeah.
It's intensity and interference is the name of it. We're bringing some intensity in different ways that we haven't, and you're writing it in a way that we're getting a little bit more muscular interference throughout the workout. So we are really hitting some body parts hard during workouts.
Yeah.
I've already gotten some really good feedback from clients already this week.
Right. And intensity in different ways, like intensity, both because we're going for like some 2 reps. So we're bringing up some intensity in the weights that you're pushing by going with heavier weights for smaller reps. And then we're also bringing intensity, like maybe the second thing you do that day is an intense little 9-minute Metcon. And then you go into some other things. And, as I've done this in the past, I realize like, it makes me feel like I don't know, just the ability to do something else after you've like gone through an intense spurt makes me feel like even more in shape. And I feel like I get more in shape, whatever that means. When I do things like that, because I'm able to like do something hard, recover, and then do something else. Not just like I did something hard and now I'm spent and I need to go lay on the couch for an hour or something. Look
at the reason that those CrossFit Games competitors could do 3 workouts in a day over that 4 days last week is because they have the ability to recover between events. Like if you can do a short hard conditioning piece and then recover quickly enough to go back to your weightlifting, that's a sign that you're in really good shape.
Yeah.
And that's our goal for our clients.
Yeah. So I'm pushing, that's the other piece I'm pushing, is pushing that up in the list a little bit to allow our bodies to start to adapt, to learn to recover.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Love it. All right. This is similar, but different. I've fallen off, haven't worked out in 10 months. Any tips how I can jump back into it and be consistent?
It's funny how this is like the main thing that makes people regain weight that they've lost or just get inconsistent and like drop off the face of the earth forever. Is even, I can see it even in the way that this question is worded. The first thing it says is I've fallen off. That means they feel like they've completely departed away from what got them in shape in the first place. And they feel like they have to jump back in to be consistent. So what they think is like, I was doing all these things before. Now I've fallen off of that. How am I going to get back to doing all those things? Like, here's the list that I used to do. I fell off of that. How do I get doing all those things? You don't. And that if you think about it that way, it's going to be completely overwhelming and you'll go 10 months without ever working out. You have to forget the idea of getting back to what you used to do and just take the next step towards getting back to those things.
Just start. It could be just do your warm up that day.
Yeah.
Just start.
It's the overwhelm that stops. Like, this person didn't stop working out all at once, or they didn't get in shape all at once. They didn't start doing all the things that got them in shape all at once. They started a little bit and then they got more consistent and they got a little bit more consistent. And we forget that that's what got us there in the first place. So when we want to restart, we think, okay, how in the world am I going to do everything? You don't.
Yeah.
You start drinking more water. You start planning your meals a little bit more. You start going for a walk. You start working out 2 to 3 times per week.
And
you start prioritizing protein.
Yeah.
You add these little things up and those things start giving you the result that motivates you to add more things in. You're never going to get motivated enough or have the time or be ready, willing, and able to do the entire list. You just have to start chipping away at it.
Yep.
And get some dang support too.
Yeah, we just had a client reach out that has been gone for a while. She's coming back, and she said to me, like, this week my goal is to do 1 workout. That's going to get her back in the door. And then next week my goal is to do 2 workouts. And then the following week, my goal is to do 3 workouts. And I was like, I love this plan. So she knows that 1 workout a week is not going to be where she's going to sit, but that is just going to get her. Like, I did this 1 workout this week. Like, this is a success.
Yep.
Next week, 2 workouts. This is a success. And she's just going to steamroll from there. And it might not even take 3 weeks to get back on track. After she does that first workout, she might be like, I feel so good. I want to do another one this week. Who knows? But that is the way to just get back. You just have to start.
Yep. Imagine if after 3 months, this person had said, I'm going to take this approach and do 1 workout per week. And then the next week, I'm going to do 2. They would have been, quote, back on track probably a month after they made the decision, instead of like waiting until they felt like they could do all of the things all at once.
This is like side rail, but there is a super powerful commercial, whatever it's called, during the CrossFit Games.
They're called commercials.
I mean, it's like not really a commercial like you see on TV.
Yeah.
Like it. And I kind of want to describe it because I feel like it fits into this mentality of like just starting. So this was an older guy, probably like in his late 60s, and he had gone to a CrossFit gym that a ex-CrossFit Games competitor owned. And anyway, he walked in and, they didn't say like why he walked into the CrossFit gym in the first place, but they were interviewing him and he was just in tears saying like, he thought that like getting old just meant that like his body stopped working. Like, he was facing some health problems. He was facing 2 knee replacements. Like he was falling off of some things that he had to do at work that he could no longer physically do. And he said, like, I just thought this was a part of getting older. It was just like, I lose the ability to do this. And he's like, I've come to realize it's not. And this commercial was shot 5 years after he started CrossFit. And today he was just like doing burpees down to like a mat, doing air squats. Like he's like, doing lunges, he said he's able to climb ladders at work. His health markers have improved so much that he's off the medications that he used to have to take. And like, it was just such a powerful commercial. But thinking about like, he's been at this for 5 years, and the coach spoke up and he's just like, he comes in every, several times a week, and he does the things, and he's just been consistent. And it's that just start. It's like sometimes we just want to like wait until everything's perfect, or we feel ready, or whatever it is. But this guy, now he's 5 years after starting, and he's healthier. He's able to do his job. He's able to probably like live much more of a life just because he started.
And he never did have that knee replacement,
and he never, he never had to have surgeries, and then this is what we want for people, is just like, to be healthy and to be fit as long as you possibly can. And I think that the message of that was, he just walked into this gym one day, probably not thinking that it would change his life the way it did, but just like, maybe it was a last resort. Like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And
that's a fine place to start.
Yeah. So it's like, if that's you today, you just got to start today, right now, because if you wait, you're just spinning your wheels waiting.
I think about that sometimes, like sending out emails to our email list, because I know some people have been on that list for 4 or 5 years at this point. And I don't know their names. A lot of them are just names on a list to me, but I wonder the people that have been opening emails for 3, 4, 5 years, if they're not where they want to be, where would they be if they had opened an email 2, 3 years ago and taken action with us?
Like clicked a button and be like, okay, I'm going to start.
Where would they be now? I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
And it makes me excited for my own future with my health too, because I've already started and I have no plans to quit. So it makes me excited about, like, where am I going to be in 5 years? Where am I going to be in 7 years? I think I'm going to be in a really good place because I'm going to keep doing the things that have gotten me up until this point. And I expect to keep getting better. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Sidebar there.
Yeah. Getting better as you age.
Yeah.
Novel concept, but it can happen.
Yeah. Hey, one other note here. I noticed when I was cutting some chicken to bake today, that bar, after it hit my chin, I think it swung around and it hit my right arm. My right arm is all swollen up, and I felt some pain in my forearm. This is sore to the touch right here. I think I have a deep bruise here on my right forearm.
Oh, goodness. Okay. What are some substitutions for sweets, like cookies or chocolate?
Okay, I'm going to attack this from 2 different angles, and you throw your thoughts in too. Number one, like, let's look at the situation of why we are substituting sweets in the first place. And let's not just immediately go for a substitute. Sometimes people who are trying to stop or modify a habit, they need to go through a period of actually not doing the thing in order to change the habit. So what I mean is, if somebody's like trying to quit smoking, they might not necessarily they might need to go through a period where they're not smoking cigarettes to be able to stop the psychological process, the neurochemical things that are going on in their brain that are pushing them to want to eat the thing or to smoke the cigarette. So I think the same thing is true with, I hate to use this word, but an addiction to sweets. It's really an addiction to a behavior or a process that's going on in your brain. But I'm throwing the idea out there that you might need to go through a period of not having it to help with the situation, and substitutions can help. So let's get into that too. I just wanted to get that out there as a disclaimer. Let's think about things that are sweet that are also less processed, highly nutritious foods. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Fruit. I mean, have you ever had a watermelon? Have you ever had like a really big, delicious blueberry or
like a cantaloupe or strawberries?
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. Yeah.
Right. So
there's tons.
That's a great option to, it's not as convenient as grabbing a cookie out of a package. So all of these kinds of things come with a level of sacrifice in the amount of effort that you're going to have to put in. But fruit goes a long way. Take some yogurt, add a little bit of frozen fruit to that will, and when you whip it up, you'll kind of turn it more into like an ice cream consistency. This person didn't specifically say a substitute for ice cream, but it's certainly a sweet treat.
Yeah.
You would also be surprised how much you can turn some Greek or Icelandic yogurt. I would recommend doing this with like the 2%, not the skim, because that has that more of a sour taste to it. But just with a little bit of honey added to it, I'm talking like a teaspoon or less, and you blend it together. Don't just leave it drizzled on top, or you won't like get the sweetness in every bite. That turns into like a delicious sweet treat, and you might pick up like 20 grams of protein in the process of having your sweet little treat. Smoothies, it's the same idea. Take some Greek yogurt, take some Icelandic yogurt, put frozen berries or a frozen banana into it. You probably won't even need the honey to sweeten it if you use a sweet fruit like strawberries or like blueberries. I consider blueberries sweet, don't you?
Blueberries, yeah.
Yeah. I guess you could add melon too. I've never tried melon in the smoothie, but that's a good substitute. One other thing that came to mind was flavored rice cakes, like the apple cinnamon ones. This is a processed food. So if you're somebody who like struggles with overeating processed food because it's like you just want to keep going, I would stick with the other things that we've mentioned first. Popsicles, that was on the list too. There's tons of no sugar added popsicles out there that just have fruit juice added to them.
We like Good Pop, Johnny Pop, and Yasso's are great. And this is like you said, it depends on like when are you eating sweets? Is this like a after dinner thing you're eating, or what time of day, or what is the situation that you're eating them? But yeah, that's a great like end of the night if you're usually going for like an ice cream or some sort of sugar at the end of the night. Like this is a great like thing that would curb that habit.
If you've had a meal that was kind of like salty or savory and you're craving something sweet afterwards, maybe having a 0-calorie drink afterwards that's sweet can help curb that. This could be like a diet soda. This could be like a Zevia.
Yeah.
Something like that will kind of hit you with that sweet burst to get the salty taste out of your mouth.
It's kind of like Athletic Brewing, the NA beers. It's like this is the substitution for an alcoholic beer, but it does all the things. Like if it gives you that feeling that you're drinking a beer, it gives you the flavor, kind of probably messes with your mind about like, oh, at this time of day I would normally be having a drink, and you just kind of stop thinking about it after a while.
Totally. And then I also wanted to say that like if going back to like maybe you shouldn't be just having sweets, some of the things that can help with not craving sweets is just to eat more protein in general. It's much more satiating than sweets and most other carbohydrate sources. So making sure that you're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 40 grams of protein per meal will probably help curb your cravings for sweets.
I also was thinking like sticking a piece of gum in your mouth or something. If there's like a time of day where you're just like, I normally grab whatever it is, like having gum in your mouth, and you just kind of it curbs your hunger a little bit and gives you that, like changes the flavor in your mouth.
I agree. And then the last thing I'll say is have bigger meals. If you're like pecking on 200, 300 calorie meals during the day, it's no wonder you're craving sweets. Eat a legitimate meal, depending on your total calorie goals for the day and, how big of a person you are, a 400 to 600 calorie meal is probably more appropriate than a 200 or 300 calorie meal. So there's some good.
I'm going to talk about my snack that I've been having right now, because this is kind of, for me, it's a substitution.
It's a meal substitute
for having a bar. So we eat breakfast, and like a lot of hours go by, we're working, and then we're going to train, and so I need like a pretty hefty snack before I work out. So I used to like easily just go for like a Builder bar was my go-to. And we did this sugar challenge. I was very aware of like how much sugar is in this thing. It's a processed bar with tons of ingredients, which I don't like to eat, and it's almost like a glorified candy bar.
It has like four kinds of sugar in it.
But it also has protein. So I was like, it's a protein bar, but no. And so I really only have like push those to where it's only like if we're like, I bring them in my purse or whatever. If like I'm starving and I need something and we're out, that's like my go-to snack, but I don't use it like when I'm at home anymore.
Yeah.
And what I've substituted, it's delicious. And it's rice, like he said, the apple cinnamon rice cakes, peanut butter, banana, honey. I do 2 of those and then a big helping of cottage cheese.
Yeah.
But it's like, it lasts me for hours because I'm about to do a workout after that. But you can do any combination of that. But it's delicious. Apple cinnamon rice cake, a little bit of almond butter, not like
you
gobs.
Just like put a spread,
I just go like a
minuscule spread on there.
I did do the weighing thing for a while just to kind of see what it looked like, and it's plenty. Like a half serving of it is plenty for 2 rice cakes. But cut up a banana and spread it among 2 rice cakes, and then drizzle it with just a little bit of honey. It's messy. Like you're like at a desk or something. It's messy. That honey is just going everywhere. And then cottage cheese for your protein.
Yeah.
Delish.
For a while there, weren't you piling the cottage cheese on top of the rice cakes?
No, it just looks like it because it's all in like the same container. But yeah, anyway, that's a good protein. I mean, that's a good snack. All right, what are some good low-sodium, high-protein snacks and foods? I'm trying to cut back on sodium intake, and the beef jerky, tuna, turkey sausages are all pretty high in sodium.
Yeah, any kind of processed meat is probably going to be high in sodium because it's being prepared to like last a long time on the shelf. So I think like the first step is to realize that, and realize that there really is no processed meat, high-protein snack that's like made to last a long time. That is low in sodium.
Truck meat.
Right.
Bring back the truck meat.
So like accepting the fact is part of the awareness of what it's going to take to find what you want.
Yeah.
It's like, where is the protein bar that has 20 grams of protein and only, 5 carbs and no fat. It doesn't exist. You have to actually go for a legitimate source of protein.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to keep your sodium down, you're probably going to have to eat more whole, unprocessed foods that are more perishable than the things that you mentioned. But let's talk about some specific things that you really can have.
What did you used to do for the truck meat? Like you used to make a big batch
As
of chicken.
part of the chicken that we would
Yeah.
make for lunches, I would bring 3 ounces of chicken with me in a
bag.
Ziploc bag in my cooler bag so it stayed cold.
Eat it in the truck.
And eat it in the truck. And it's because that's what I needed to do. I realized
instead
that
of grabbing a beef jerky bar or something.
right.
Yeah.
But at the time I wasn't watching my sodium, but I was just trying to get enough protein, and just has the benefit of being a sodium-free option too. Also, I didn't really think about this till now, but be careful of the seasonings that you're using too. There's low sodium seasonings out there too. Maybe you can afford to have a more processed protein snack if you can cut some of the sodium out in the seasonings that you use. Okay, so let's talk about what are general high protein sources that you could potentially eat as a snack that don't have a lot of sodium in them. Anything dairy, Greek, Icelandic yogurt, cottage cheese, and ultra filtered milk like Fairlife, all extremely low sodium. Sometimes
Hard-boiled
cheeses,
eggs.
hard-boiled eggs is another good one. There is really no hack to finding out what this is. It's unprocessed meat, and it's real less processed dairy. Some cheeses like string cheese, I think those have a decent amount of sodium in them. Some mozzarellas, things like that.
I mean, the moral is anything that's processed, that's going to come in a sealable package, individually packaged thing that you can easily take out, is going to have more processing, is going to have more of the ingredients you probably don't want.
Yeah.
So like I was saying with the snack bars, times when you absolutely need that, like you're on a road trip or you're you're going to be gone all day, taking the kids to practices and doing all these things, grab one of those. It's not going to kill you for that time. But when you have control over your environment, when you can make extra meat to bring to work to have as your snack, all these situations, most of the time that we can control, those are the times to go for these things that take a little bit more effort, but are going to lower the sodium.
I guess you could add, for our vegetarian friends out there, edamame. This isn't really something you could bring on the go, I don't think, unless you're willing to eat it cold. But they're basically they're soybeans, the pod. You pop a little seed in your mouth. That's a good high protein source.
Yep.
And then I said milk, but there's also protein shakes you can bring with you to have as a snack. There's the same companies that make the ultra filtered milk make ready-made protein shakes. Fairlife Core Power ones. I see one called OWYN all the time, or Gain makes a protein shake. Just be careful if you're somebody who's watching their total calories to kind of scan the nutrition label and use the high protein snack rule, where you take the total grams of protein, multiply it times 10, and that should be less than how many calories are in it. That'll make sure there aren't a bunch of extra calories sneaking in from carbs and fat.
All right. Last one. Why do we keep bad habits we know are bad and cause us pain? When I eat and drink certain things, my inflammation rears up and my hips and knees hurt. I know what causes it, but I keep drinking the pop and eating the breads.
This is the stuff that I didn't really think about when I started in nutrition coaching. You think more about how much protein does a person need?
Right.
What are the best sources of unsaturated fat? But it's really about how do you get people to change the behaviors that they want to change, and how do you do what you know you should do when you don't want to do what you know you should do. Probably could boil this down to 2 main things. Number 1, do you have a self-limiting mindset that actually believes that you can change the thing that you know is bad for you? Because if you don't, what you'll do is you'll start to make progress towards that thing, but your identity is really wrapped up in that person who struggles with making the change. So at some point along your journey, when you hit a threshold of friction in the process, you'll self-sabotage yourself so that you can reassume the identity of the person that you really think you are, which is somebody who struggles to break the bad habits. So you have to have a little bit of self-awareness if that really is holding you back. That's really, I would say, outside the scope of nutrition coaching. You probably need to do some deeper work as to why you have those self-limiting beliefs. If there's something that happened in your childhood, if something just has happened in your past that has made you think you're incapable of change. So that's number 1. The second thing is just taking an all or nothing approach to making the change is probably the biggest thing. And we've talked ad nauseum about the all or nothing mentality, but you think this person said that, there's certain foods that they want to stop eating because they know that they self-sabotage themselves. So they're trying to eliminate that thing completely. But there probably is some threshold of that thing they can have that doesn't kick them over into the negative health impacts that they want. So maybe instead of going like, I'm going to go wholesale elimination on this thing, maybe like we talked about with the person who's been off track for 10 months, maybe you start limiting how much of that stuff you have so you don't build up these feelings of restriction, but it's not so much that it causes you to have the negative impacts that you want. And then as you build the self-efficacy and being able to keep those promises to yourself and stick with the amount of it that you said that you would have, you can change that over time to where you get to the point where it's really how much you wanted to have in your diet in the first place. On the practical side of things, you have to look at like, what are the triggers in your everyday life that are making you go for the things that you wish you wouldn't? Like sometimes, almost everything we do is just based on habit and repetition. Like, if you get home every day at 5:30 in the afternoon and the first thing you do is walk to the refrigerator, crack a beer open, and then go proceed with whatever you're doing for the evening, just saying, and you want to stop that habit, just saying like, I'm not going to do that anymore is probably not going to work because you're still going through the same routine you go through every night leading up to that. So when you walk through the threshold of that door, the trigger is still there for you to walk to the refrigerator and grab the beer. You go through this ritual. So breaking up the ritual can help change, or breaking up the routine can help reduce the trigger that leads you to want to do the thing. So maybe instead of going in, pulling in, opening the garage and going in through the garage door, maybe you park the car and you go in the front door and you have another pre-decided action that you're going to take. Going to say hi to your spouse, going to talk to your kids, anything like that. Break the rhythm, reduce the trigger, and have a substitute habit for what you used to do. Yeah. If you were used to going for a certain drink that you shouldn't drink, like I think this person said, like a sugary drink, just trying to resist the sugary drink is probably going to only work so long. What's something that you could have instead that would give you a little bit of the same dopamine hit, the thing that you wanted to get out of it emotionally, so that you're not just relying on like extreme discipline and willpower, especially at the beginning where that can feel like it's limited.
Like a fizzy water.
Yeah, exactly.
It has the same mouth feel.
Right. And then the last thing I'll say about this is none of this stuff will work and I kind of already alluded to this, like if you don't figure out like what is the reason that you're doing the thing that you shouldn't do. Like you have to you got to get underneath and look at the thing that's causing you to try to deal with things in an unhealthy way. Why are you going to what you consider unhealthy coping mechanisms? If you ignore that, it's just like, putting a Band-Aid over something that needs stitches. How's that for bringing this podcast full circle?
Wow.
For a while, it might seem like it's going to work because you stop the bleeding, but eventually it's going to reopen and you're going to have to deal with it. Or you'll just live with it in constant strife until, something else happens.
High five. We didn't think we were going to be able to do a podcast this week. We thought we were going to have to do roll out an old one because his voice was jacked up until yesterday. So
how's it sounding now? Is it sounding normal?
Yeah.
I've developed kind of a lisp, like because of how my teeth are. You don't realize like how much you touch your top teeth when you talk with your tongue to enunciate words until you have chips on the back of your teeth. Like my tongue was all cut up and
everything's in the wrong place.
Everything feels weird. I got marbles in my mouth. But haven't missed a client check-in, haven't missed a notification in TrueCoach, haven't missed an email. And it might sound silly, but I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
because
you should be.
I want to represent to other people that challenges come up and you can be consistent. And I also want to give God all the credit for how everything has played out since the accident. Like so many things, like so many things in our life fell into place in just the right way to make it, to where it is. And like every time somebody reaches out and is like, man, I can't believe how much pain you must be in. I want to say I'm not in pain, and to God be the glory for that. Yeah.
And you just realize how many people around you and in these kind of times, like it was just crazy, like all the different people that came to help and, reach out and just like actually helped us and offered help. And I was just like, wow, the amazing community that we
even
have.
Like, we talk a lot about how like our clients aren't just like a number on
Yeah.
spreadsheet or a name on a list. Like, we have relationships with these people, and we're pouring ourselves into these people to try to help meet their needs so much. And it felt really nice for so many of them to, I am crying a little bit, for them to reach out and like check on me. So,
Aw.
all right, let's cut this off before I break down in tears. All right. Thank you
job.
guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll catch you next week.